welcome to today's Monday of Christmas Week edition. Some of you are already in your cars headed to faraway places. I'm right here giving you the news, as I will be tomorrow on Christmas Eve. You will not miss a minute of anything if you stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show. I'm looking forward. We're going to have Senator Tom Cotton coming up. Going to have Ambassador Michael Waltz of the United Nations. I got a lot ahead. But I want to start with a story I didn't get to last week because I wasn't ready. Last week, Vanity Fair published a, quote, profile of President Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles. And I read it, and I said, oh, I had smoke coming out of my ears. I don't know Susie Wiles, by the way. You'll hear me tell Trey Gowdy in a little bit. I've spoken to her on the phone once, very briefly. I pitched her on an idea of interviews with President Trump. She said she'd taken under advisement, didn't happen. And then I texted her when she became chief of staff. I said, would you like to do an interview? She said, no, thank you. That's it. Don't know Susie Wiles. Haven't said anything beyond that. I'm not in her corner. I just know a hit piece when I see a hit piece. And then Trey Gowdy, who does Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy, offered, hey, you want to come on and talk about this? I said, absolutely. And before I tell you more about it, let's go to the conversation from last night with me and Trey Gowdy on Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy on the Fox News Network.
Joining us is one of my favorite lawyers and law professors, Hugh Hewitt, Fox News contributor and host of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome, Professor. In Trump's first term, there was some turnover. My friends in the current cabinet tell me a lot of the stability this time around is because of Susie Wiles and her steady hand. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing exactly the same thing, Congressman. Merry Christmas and good evening to you as well. And I want to emphasize what you did. I've spoken to Susie Wiles exactly once in my life, and I've had one text exchange with her. I asked her for interviews on both occasions, once for the president, once for her. She turned me down. She's not my friend. I don't have anything to do with her. She got submarined. It was basically stab her in the back after she attempted to do something I think that was unique, bring in a left-winger and say, let me give you some access to how the White House works and how I do my job. You want to do a profile of me? And it was an absolute hatchet job. His response, Chris Whipple is his name, is I've got the tapes. I'm sure he has the tapes. The question is, did he write a piece in good faith about Susie Wiles? So I called up John Delaney, texted him actually, her former boss. She was chief of staff to the now president of Flagler College in Florida when he was running mayor of Jacksonville. I said, did this guy reach out to you? He said, absolutely not. And it would have been, he's been talked to by everyone who's profiled Susie Wiles. John Delaney's in almost every article. So I think Chris Whipple had an agenda, which was to send a long telegram to the TDS afflicted that confirmed their worldview. And he fumbled like an opportunity that any journalist would kill for. 11 long interviews with a sitting chief of staff, maybe 10 with her in office and one before. And I made a list of quotes. We don't have time to go through it. The guy has got serious TDS. And I'm sorry she picked the wrong journalist. It was a good idea to show how the president of the United States is not a warmonger, how he operates. And Chris Whipple botched it, and he botched it with the least generous of spirits towards the subject who extended him every graciousness.
Memo to self, say no to Whipple next time and say yes to Hugh Hewitt. All right, I want us to listen to the vice president, and then I'm going to ask you about it on the other side, okay?
All right.
I've never seen Susie Wiles say something to the president and then go and counteract him or subvert his will behind the scenes. And that's what you wanted a staffer. Because as much as I love Susie, the American people didn't elect any staffer. They elected the president of the United States. But I've never seen her be disloyal to the president of the United States, and that makes her the best White House chief of staff that I think the president could ask for.
All right, Professor, as you always do, you anticipated my next question, and this is it. Some in the media complain about a lack of access. And then when that access is granted, this publication goes out of its way to even pick the most unflattering pictures. I have seen better mugshots than some of the pictures that they picked for people who cooperated with them. I mean, if you need exhibits in the trial on media bias, go look at the photos that they picked of the people that work in the Trump administration.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I had to look twice to make sure I was seeing what they did. And it's an unfortunate hatchet job at every level. Vanity Fair wants to sell magazines. I understand that they do that. I do not understand Chris Whipple throwing away that opportunity. I don't understand the photographer throwing away that opportunity. Once again, there's a hardcore, sort of deranged group of people in the United States who want to hate Donald Trump and who want confirmation bias. And Chris Whipple gives them a lot of confirmation bias so that even when you try and be nice and open up the door and say, come in and take a look, we're actually running a pretty tight ship here. The president is not a warmonger. That's a direct quote from the article. They produced this. Those pictures were laughable, but it's just a warning to every Republican. You will never, ever get a fair shake from the legacy media, even if you're nice to them. Even if you really try very hard, it will never, ever happen.
From Hugh Hewitt's lips to everyone's ears. I don't know how many different times we have to learn this lesson. They're not going to be fair to you, but I tell you what, I'm going to be fair to you. I drew your name in a Christmas raffle. I'm a fiscal conservative, so it's not going to be much, but I'll look forward to sending you your Christmas gift. You will be underwhelmed. Merry Christmas to my favorite law professor, Hugh Hewitt.
I hope it's a Sunday Night in America coffee mug. We'll see. By the way, here's some of the things I wrote down. These are direct quotes. Chris Whipple's voice. Chris Whipple, quote, "For many of Trump's followers, it's an article of faith that the U.S. government has long been run by an elite cabal of pedophiles." Close quote. Remember, Donald Trump got 77.3 million votes. I don't know anyone, really, literally, no one, who's ever said this to me. I know there are a couple of nuts running around who believed that for a time, led to the Comet Pizza shootout. But he writes, for many of Trump's followers, it's an article of faith that the U.S. government has been long run by an elite cabal of pedophiles. That's nuts. He's nuts. Second, critics have compared this moment, the Trump second term, to a Reichstag fire, a modern version of Hitler's exploitation of the torching of Berlin's parliament. I suppose you can find someone to say that. It's insane. It's nuts. It's in the Vanity Fair article. This one is a great one. Cut number 3, or quote number 3 from Whipple. The Epstein Files debacle poses a dire political threat to Trump and the future of the GOP. Yeah, spit my coffee out. That's such a laugher. No, they don't. Whose picture have you seen in the last 48 hours? Bill Clinton. It's not a dire political. That's idiocy. Number 4. Chris Whipple, quote, Chris Whipple, asked Wiles what she makes of the president's affinity for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who seems to have cast a spell over Trump since he first ran for president. Okay, bingo, Trump derangement syndrome. He cast a spell over Putin. Trump has killed more Russian soldiers in the attack in Syria than all the other. He's given everything that Ukraine wants to Ukraine. Another one. Vance keeps his eye on voters, he wrote. It's Epstein, Gaza, and coziness with Israel, said this White House source. If you dive deeply into the internet, you'll find things that say, well, why don't we just put Bibi at the Resolute desk? Well, if you dive deep in the internet, you'll find people telling me that Chris Whipple's a serial murderer. It's indicting your own source. Next, the president and his team are pushing almost every legal and constitutional boundary and defying courts to stop them. In fact, the president has raised a lot of arguments. He's abided with every court order to date, and he always will. He said that. He's making legal arguments. Another one, he called the Zelensky meeting an ugly spectacle. No, it wasn't. What we used to call full and frank discussion. My favorite one. Last one. I had already pressed Wiles on Trump's practice of blowing boats out of the water. The casualties almost certainly include unsuspecting fishermen. That's a lie. They don't almost certainly include that. They are almost certainly all drug runners. It really is. What Susie Wiles wanted to do was to try and find a group of persuadables on the left, maybe the center left, give a lot of access to someone who was allegedly responsible. He'd written a book. He's a nobody. Written 4 books. No one's ever heard of him before. One of them's on chief of staffs. She picks Whipple, and Whipple doesn't stab her in the back. He stabs her in the front. And I'm just here to say, never agree to profiles. Just don't do it. They will not treat you fairly. And if we got the transcript of the 11 interviews, we would all be able to agree on that. It was a hatchet job. I'm Hugh Hewitt. On the Monday before Christmas, you've got nothing to do, I'm sure. If you're in your car, you're on your way to a mall. I'm joined by Bethany Mandel, co-host of the momwars.substack.com. Follow her on X at Bethany Shondark. Bethany is still in Israel. Hanukkah is over. Does that make it easier or less fun, Bethany, to be in Israel with Hanukkah over?
It's a lot better because the traffic in Jerusalem every night at candlelighting was monstrous. So I'm happy the holiday is over.
All right. Now, I want to ask you about the reports in American media that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to Mar-a-Lago to persuade President Trump to hit Iran again. Has that made it into the media you've been consuming in Israel?
Absolutely. So it's funny. I was at the airport today getting a bag that one of my kids left on the airplane a month ago, and I've been fighting with Ben Gurion Airport to get it back. Yeah, it's taken a month, but I finally got it back. And while we were there, a siren went off, and it was just a false alarm. It wasn't, it wasn't a missile or anything. And my instant thought was, Iran struck first. This is it. And then they turned it off. And they're like, just kidding. Sorry, everyone go out your day. And I was like, oh, I had like a kid under each arm ready to run, but yeah, cool. Yes, it had gotten into the media I'm consuming is the long answer to that question.
Have you kicked it around with your Israeli friends about whether it's a good idea? I think it's a good idea. If they're building more missiles than they had before and they're going to be farther, and they've given up on the nukes, they're just going to overwhelm Iron Dome and Iron Beam and everything else.
I mean, I think that there's a logical part of everyone's brain and there's an emotional part of everyone's brain, and they are not in agreement on this one. My Israeli friends, especially those with kids, have told me over the course of the last month, but since the war happened over the summer, that the level of trauma that they had from the Iran war on the back of the Gaza war for the last 2 years was significant. The trauma was really significant. And so I think that there is an appreciation that they need to really knock this out completely. But they're kind of like, oh, can we have like a 15-minute break before we go back to war again? Because it's just felt relentless, after the Iran war, after the Gaza situation, and before that with COVID. It just feels like there's been a lot of trauma here.
Does anyone tell you how big the threat grows or how more serious the threat grows every day? Because I believe it's dozens, if not hundreds of missiles, ballistic missiles a day that they produce.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is really significant. And what was scary was the fact that, missiles got through Iron Dome. A lot of people, presumed that this was a shield that was impenetrable, and it wasn't. There were things that got through last time. And so that added to the trauma, honestly, the fact that everyone's hiding in their shelters, but they aren't certain that they're safe. So there's a recognition for sure that they need to make sure that Iran doesn't get to the same capability they had, because it was a terrifying experience here.
Now, this week, Haviv Rettig-Gur did a Ask Haviv Anything with one of the leading sort of Federalist Society types in Israel. That's how I'll just frame it, a judicial expert. And I did not realize that the Chief Justice of the Israeli Supreme Court is a hard leftist. And that in the past, when they did commissions of inquiry, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court appointed the Commission of Inquiry. And that's just not going to happen because everybody from Bibi Netanyahu to the right, and maybe some to the left, think this guy is a leftist activist, and they're not going to let him set up the commission. Is that in the water? Is that being discussed and how to go about getting a commission, or even if they need one?
There's a lot of mess here in the political system, and I think a lot of people have. I would venture to say most Israelis have lost confidence in their political system as it stands now, and so I think that there's just mistrust all around. Everyone seems to have their own agenda. It's not a functioning government here, that's for sure.
Expand on that, please.
So I was caught in traffic all night long because there was protests that completely destabilized the entire highway system from across the country in the central part of the country because there were a lot of ultra orthodox folks who were flooding the highways, stopping traffic because they didn't want to join the army. And that is a political situation that has been bubbling for the course of the last 2 years because the ultra Orthodox have decided that they want to spend their time studying Torah instead of serving in the military. Military is mandatory here, and if you're in the reserves, which most people are in their 30s and their 40s, they've spent hundreds and hundreds of days over the course of the last 2 years fighting in Gaza or in Lebanon or wherever it is. And so there is a lot of distrust and a lot of resentment across the board, whether it be from left to right, religious to not religious. And so the faith that people have, especially after October 7th, the fact that that was a catastrophic failure on the part of leadership, and there doesn't seem to be that much interest in getting to the bottom of what happened, all of that breeds a lot of distrust. And I think that it has been kept at bay because Israel has been at war for the last 2 years, but it's not going to be kept at bay for much longer.
So, Bethany Mandel, I teach con law and have for 30 years. I don't have opinions on Israeli constitutional law, except I have now one. It's broken after listening to Haviv, who's a centrist. I mean, maybe center-left, maybe a little bit center-left, but it's broken, and it's got to get fixed. And so those 10% or 10% of the country that's the left go out in the streets and shut things down. But does everyone realize it's just fundamentally it doesn't work? And the attorney general there, the one you may or may not see, she's crazy.
Yes. Not only were they shutting down the country before October 7th, but they shifted that entire protest movement that was shutting down Tel Aviv every single Saturday night. They superimposed that protest movement onto the hostage forum, basically. And so a lot of that hostage stuff also became extremely politicized because it was all the same leadership. It was everything. They literally just plug and placed the judicial reform protests into the hostage protests. And it's become a really cynical, sad situation.
So does the average Israeli, and again, you were kind enough to say a couple of them listen to the show. They're up too late if they're doing that. But does the average Israeli just want to get to elections and try again, or do they demand this inquiry? Because I think having the inquiry with the Chief Justice appoint people is nuts.
So a lot of Israelis listen to your show because I got a lot of angry messages last week after I said I didn't want to move here. So it's not too late for them. And I'll make them angry again. I don't think I don't think a lot of Israelis are paying attention. They're really exhausted. Oh, I was on the beach today with two girlfriends, and we could hear the booms from Gaza 60 miles away. And I was with a girlfriend telling her what happened to me in the airport earlier that day, and she said, "Wait, are we going to go back? I don't even pay attention to the news anymore. I'm so exhausted. I can't deal with that stuff anymore." And I think that's a lot of Israelis. Obviously not the ones that listen to your show, but a lot of them are just so exhausted from the last 2 years that they've just tried to tune out. And domestic politics ranks lower on their radar than like, are we going to war again? That they're not super concerned is my observation.
I can understand that, but the enemy gets a say in that too. That's the old cliche, and the enemy is building ballistic missiles. And to me, they're a bad regime, really bad regime. Bethany, safe travels home. I'll talk to you in the new year, I think. I'm off next week, but blessed to your travels. Joined by Congressman Mike Lawler. Mike Lawler represents New York's 17th Congressional District. He won in 2022. He won in 2024. He's been on the program before. I get along with him really well. I like him a lot. But I think I'm going to have to support his Democratic opponent in 2026. And I wanted to talk to him about that, and he was kind enough to come on. Congressman, welcome back. I'm very upset about the discharge petition. And I don't want to talk about the merits. I want to talk about what you did to my party that I've spent my life building, which has put all of your colleagues in a terrible position. Why should I overlook that?
Well, respectfully, Hugh, this is a situation where Democrats shut the government down for 43 days. They made the issue of the enhanced premium tax credit the quote unquote reason for the shutdown. And as I did during the shutdown, I went and exposed Leader Jeffries' hypocrisy on that, showing full well that that really was not A, the issue, and B, they had no interest in solving it. When the government reopened, we sat down, a bipartisan group of us, to actually come up with a plan to reform the system. It would do a 2-year extension, but it would actually start to make changes that conservatives have wanted to make to Obamacare for years. Income limits, insurance reforms, rooting out fraud in the system, eliminating the zero premium plans and actually requiring a payment from the individual, PBM reform, HSA expansion. We worked then, the group of us that on the Republican side worked with House Republican leadership to force a vote. We wanted to put the bill on the floor and frankly, let the Democrats vote yay or nay. And my suspect was going to be that if there was a zero premium plan elimination in there, most of the Democrats would vote no. And we worked through this. We tried to get it to the floor. Ultimately, we could not reach an agreement for various reasons. There was disagreement within our conference on a few fronts. But this is something that I felt very strongly about, both from a political standpoint, but also from a policy standpoint. Doing nothing was not a solution. The fact is that for the 7% of people who rely on the enhanced premium tax credit, they are going to see an exponential spike. And we have been pushing leadership for months to say, okay, we need a Republican plan. We need to address the issue of healthcare affordability. It's not enough to just say Obamacare bad and we hate Obamacare. We all know Obamacare doesn't work, and certainly not the way Democrats said it would work in terms of reducing costs. But we are in the majority and we have a responsibility to govern and to address these issues. What I suspect with the discharge, what's going to happen when we come back in January, it'll pass the House. It'll go to the Senate.
Wait, stop. Stop.
Yep.
Stop. What'll happen is all of the Republicans except the 4 will vote against that discharge petition because it's bad law. Am I right?
No, I think there will be more than the 4 voting in favor of moving.
Not if I've got anything to do with it, because it is such a bad idea. Go. I just want to stay on the discharge petition. I'll debate Obamacare with you for 3 hours, but the discharge petition.
Nobody's defending the 3-year. I said, even as recent as yesterday, the 3-year is not acceptable policy. The problem is we need a vehicle to actually get reforms done. When the 3-year passes, the discharge will be voted on January 6th. When the 3-year extension passes the House, the Senate will not pass that. They've already shown they won't pass that. And Leader Thune said that again.
Congressman, all due respect, it's not the Senate. We're not going to filibuster. I'm focused on one thing, which is you threw a hand grenade into my party that I spent my life defending, and 213 or 212 of them are going to have to vote against what looks like it's a good idea, and that's going to be an ad against all of them. And if you can't get David Joyce, you can't get the most reasonable guy in the House. And he's my congressman from Ohio if I were still living in Ohio. You threw all your guys overboard. A minute to the break, and then we'll keep going.
Well, respectfully, many of my colleagues have actually thanked us for doing it because we need to have a vote and actually advance bipartisan legislation that includes reforms to Obamacare. So the fact is, Hugh, this is my party too. I've spent my career electing Republicans and conservatives across this country and in New York, but we have a responsibility to govern, and I'm not going to shirk in that responsibility because there's a dispute within the House.
Congressman, I supported you when you used your leverage on the SALT deduction. I understand your district. I understand it's difficult. But when you sign a discharge petition and the leadership says don't do it, you are exposing, can I at least get you to admit, it's going to be an ad in every marginal district in 2026 that they voted against extending Obamacare subsidy. It'll be a lie, but it'll be an ad, and they'll be voting against them.
Well, the ads were already written about allowing it to expire. And that's the fundamental problem. That's why I said this is political malpractice, not to have a solution to this issue, coupled with the larger reforms that we passed yesterday in the House that every Democrat voted against. I voted for our speaker's plan because we do want to address the larger issue of health care. But to just dismiss the 7% and say, oh, it's okay, their health care premiums can go up, I'm not okay with that. And I know many of my colleagues
dismissing them. It is not dismissing them. It is saying that
you have to have a plan.
Go ahead, sir.
And you have to have a plan, and we didn't have one in time with the expiration of these premium tax credits. And by the way, we didn't just raise this issue because Democrats raised it. Members brought this up earlier this year in May when we were negotiating the One Big Beautiful Bill. We brought it up in September before the shutdown. This was something that's been discussed within our conference for months. And so it's not like people were shocked that this was an issue we had to deal with.
No, but it's the discharge petition. I'm really being focused here. I'm being focused.
Yep.
I might agree with you. I've been arguing for tax credits that are targeted for people who are 200% of the poverty line and are stuck in the state exchanges. There's a big debate to be had. There's plenty of time to do it afterwards. But the 3-year extension is bad law. It is inflationary law. It will never pass. It's a complete showboat. And what I'm really I don't even mind that. I mind the fact that you probably cost seats to the Republican Party because they have to vote on the discharge petition, and it's like voting on a hand grenade.
I disagree with you. Doing nothing will cost us seats. And what we did, and I just have a fundamental difference of opinion on the discharge. And many of my colleagues have signed discharge petitions, especially in recent years, including on conservative issues. The discharge petition is a tool of every member. It's not just a tool of the minority. And sometimes, like we saw back when John Boehner was Speaker and the far right did not want the XM Bank to move forward, John Boehner did the wink and the nod and said, go sign the discharge so we can move the bill. It is
and I do not object to the discharge petition. I object. That's filibustering. I object to this one at this time when the country believes that the Obamacare 3-year extension has a prayer, and you have already admitted it doesn't have a prayer. It will never pass.
I've said it will not pass, but we needed a vehicle, okay, to get an actual bill passed. And so what's going to happen? The 3-year will pass the House. The Senate will not pass it. They've already voted it down. They did it last week when Chuck Schumer brought it up, and I slammed Schumer for just doing a hyper-partisan 3-year bill. I slammed Leader Jeffries for just doing the hyper-partisan 3-year bill and not supporting the compromise bill that we negotiated. But we needed a vehicle that could get to 218.
But the compromise bill
could
passed.
Actually have a vote.
I'll come back on the other side. The compromise bill did pass, did it not?
I'm sorry, did pass what?
The compromise bill, the House bill, did pass.
No, we introduced it. We signed a discharge on it, but unfortunately the Democrats wouldn't.
Okay, then we had to go to break. In fact, when we come back, I make the point, the vehicle bill did pass. The Republicans passed a bill to send to the House. Completely fallacious argument being made by Congressman Lawler here, saying we needed a vehicle. The Republicans sent a vehicle to the House. It's up to the Senate to decide what to do. And he knows that. It was showboating. Here's part 3 of the interview.
Christmas.
Welcome back, America. Friends can disagree, and sometimes they have falling outs, and I'm having one with Michael Lawler because we're talking past each other. Congressman, the GOP health care plan in the House did pass, did it not?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the GOP plan that we put forward. Yes. Yep.
So there is a vehicle that will go to the Senate. That vehicle will not get 60 votes. So if there's going to be a resolution, it's going to be done in the Senate because the House can't do anything, but this can do anything by majority, but it takes 60 votes in the Senate. So you didn't need to sign the discharge bill to get a vehicle. You're making a facetious argument. You did that. I don't know why you did it. I think you're smart. You know what you're doing. You've used leverage before. Why would you put your members, your colleagues, your friends, the party in the peril that you did? And why shouldn't I be this pissed off?
Look, I disagree with you about us putting our majority in peril. Doing nothing on the issue that Democrats weaponized during the shutdown and that the media has tried to explain to voters is the reason their healthcare premiums are going up. When you and I both know Obamacare itself is the reason. It has failed to actually reduce cost. But doing nothing on this was the wrong decision. And we had an internal battle over this. And 4 of us signed the discharge, but I'm telling you, there are a lot more, A, that were willing to sign it, and B, that want something done on this. And so we are going to get a resolution come January and force a vote so that we can actually get a compromise bill.
You could I want to go through your objection. Doing nothing. The Republicans didn't do nothing. They passed an alternative. And as we just let the audience know it passed. Number two.
You just pointed out is not going to become law because it won't get the Democrat votes in the Senate.
Just like the discharge petition. So we have something to put into the Senate's lap so that they can begin the negotiations. It didn't have to be the discharge petition. But as you just pointed out, the media has been framing this to hurt Republicans because the media is left-wing. You fed into that narrative. And no matter how many people came up and whispered to you, way to go, Mike, 4 of you signed it. 4 of you sent it to the floor, and it's going to force a vote where 214 Republicans are going to have to say no. Maybe it'll be 212. And that, because of the media that we just discussed, is going to be the ad that sinks them. So there's more coming at the start of the next hour, and it applies to Brian Fitzpatrick as well as Ryan McKenzie and Rob Bresnahan of Pennsylvania. They screwed the GOP. What do you think? 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. I'm going to play the end of my interview with Mike Lawler in the next segment, the top segment of hour number 2, because it's 4.5 minutes long, and I don't want to cut it off because I don't want to be rude to the congressman. But I am. I'm going to play it again tomorrow in the second hour, and then I'm going to wait and see what Congressman Lawler, Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, Congressman Ryan McKenzie, and Congressman Rob Bresnahan do in January, which is they should vote against the discharge petition. They ought to say, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have signed the discharge petition. Our bad. Sorry. They don't get a free vote on this. It was all showboating, and they shouldn't get a free vote. And if you disagree with me, 1-800-520-1234. Or if you agree with me, I'll have time for a few calls after I play the balance of the interview right at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Let me take this moment to ask you to remember you have time to go to besthotgrill.com. Besthotgrill.com. The place, great sponsor. Been a sponsor for many years, Rhett Rasmussen is a good friend of mine, and Irene, his wife. They've been making them in California for years and years and years, family business. The Solar Infrared Grill is the best grill made in America. I have one on each coast. Generalissimo has one. And if you go to besthotgrill.com, you can buy one for yourself for Christmas. Try it before you buy it if you want. Or you can get your very best clients, the small hibachi. There's 2 small sizes, and it's like mama bear, baby bear. There are 2 baby bears, there's a mama bear, and there are 2 daddy bears. 5 sizes of Best Hot Grill, all made by Solar Grill, and they're the very best grills made in America. 0 to 1,000 in 3 minutes, and they sear your meat so that it is perfect. And no matter how you like your meat, it'll turn out perfect. You'll love the grill. It's not like, oh, here's some charcoal and a Weber. No, it's the real deal. It's chef grade. And the perfect gift, if you forgot about it, go now. I don't know how much time. You can give them a card saying you're getting this Best Hot Grill and take a picture of it. Print off the website and circle it. Cut out the ones that are better than that you're not giving it. Just take the picture. Have your kids do it if you can't manipulate it. But do visit besthotgrill.com. Also, while you're there, we have 4 days left to Christmas. All right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Christmas Day. And we can get a lot more kids taken care of by Angel Tree. if you make a $30 or a $300 or a $50 or $60 or a $7 million contribution, they can make it work. Every kid who is served by Angel Tree, and we're not expecting a $7 million contribution, that would be nice, but Jan and Carol gave tens of thousands of dollars, thank you. And some of you gave me 10, thank you. All you have to do is go to hughhewitt.com, find that banner at the top. It's completely secure. You can absolutely help a child if you act today. The banner at the top of hughhewitt.com. Their mom or dad is in prison, but they'll get a present. They'll get a note from mom or dad. They'll get a Bible, and they'll get connected to Angel Tree, and you'll change your life. You can do that right now by going to hughhewitt.com and finding the banner at the top. Welcome back to this Monday, Christmas week edition. On Friday of last week in the third hour, I interviewed Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican, New York 17th Congressional District, about his decision, along with Brian Fitzpatrick, Ryan McKenzie, and Rob Bersnahan of Pennsylvania, 4 Republicans signed a discharge petition to force a vote on the idiotic 3-year no-holds-bar extension of Obamacare subsidies, which is a bad idea and a bad bill, even though the Republicans were going to vote on it, in fact, did vote on and passed an alternative to Obamacare. And so Congressman Lawler and I got into it. This is the conclusion of that interview. Then I'll take your calls at 1-800-520-1234. Was I too rough on him, or were they the morons I think they were when they voted for this thing? And should they change their minds and say, I'm sorry, that was a mistake? Here's the end of the interview. I don't know how you can walk away from the car crash when you were driving and saying, I got nothing to do with that. It wasn't me.
Again, we're just going to disagree because the reality is the ads were already written about the expiration of the tax credit. We are seeking to do a two-pronged solution. Number one, having an answer on the enhanced premium tax credit with reforms. Number two, addressing the larger issues within the healthcare system, which you and I are in full agreement is a broken system under Obamacare. Healthcare premiums have risen 96%. And meanwhile, insurance profits are up over 2,000% because Obamacare was written by the insurance companies for the insurance companies. That system needs to be reformed. And we have a plan that actually will start to reform the system. And that's what we're seeking to get across the finish line. You know this better than anybody.
I got 2 questions for you, Congressman. I got 2 questions before we run out of time. One, can you take your name off the discharge petition?
No, it's already active. It's 218.
Will you can, however, apologize for it and reconsider and say I made a mistake? Will you think about doing that between now and January so that you vote against the petition you forced onto the floor?
Look, I am comfortable with my decision, and the decision I made. I didn't make it lightly, and I made it after exhausting every single option we had before us within our House Republican conference. We worked tirelessly to get a deal with leadership, and unfortunately, as the speaker said, we just couldn't, solve this Rubik's Cube. There were a lot of reasons why, and ultimately, this is the decision I made.
So, Congressman, did you or did you not win on the SALT cap? You won on the SALT cap.
We did.
Yeah. So the party has been good for you. The party did what you needed done. The party Mike Lawler got what he needed. So I'm listening to an ungrateful guy in a marginal district who wants the NRCC to support him and people like me to do it. And you're ungrateful. I'm just furious that you did this. Do you understand that?
Yeah, respectfully, Hugh, I'm not ungrateful in the least. But I know this, my seat is one of only 3 seats in the country that Kamala Harris won, that a Republican represents. We're at 220. If we lose those seats, we're out of the majority. It's that simple. And I am fighting to represent my district, to represent my constituents, and to give us the majority and keep Speaker Johnson in the speaker's chair and keep the gavels. So it's not about being ungrateful. All right. I've eaten a lot of votes this year on things that I don't necessarily agree with. There's people on the other side of the conference that have eaten votes on SALT that they don't necessarily agree with. That's what happens when you have a small majority. Everybody's got to give and take. Do
you listen when you're out in the district? If enough people come up to you and say, I heard the Hewitt and Hewitt's right, and you should apologize and vote against your discharge petition, will you listen to them? Because I think you're a smart guy who made a mistake, and that shouldn't end your career. You should win. But there are people like me who are just going to say, you're more trouble than you're worth. We'll win the majority somewhere else. Because if you stab me in the back, you'll stab me in the front. And this was a real backstab, Mike.
Yeah, Hugh, number one, I do listen to my constituents. I'm out every single day meeting with constituents when I'm not in D.C. I do dozens of events, every week in my district. So I talk to everybody across the spectrum. Number two, I'm very blunt and direct. I don't hide. I don't mince words.
I'm not being very subtle here either.
No, but my point is, I'm not backstabbing anybody. I was very clear with the speaker what was going to happen if we couldn't figure this out. And so there was no backstabbing. It was straightforward. And I've owned my decision, and I've explained it. And people have every right to disagree with it. But it's not backstabbing. It's very straightforward.
Okay, I'm going to pray for a Christmas miracle. All right, that was the extent of it. Jimmy, northeastern Pennsylvania, 1-800-520-1234. What do you think, Jimmy?
I think we got hosed.
Who's we?
I'm in Bresnahan's district, too.
Okay, you're in Bresnahan's district. Did you
I
call him up?
I guess I'll have to vote for him, but I don't know.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I really think we can pick up seats more than we lose. And these four guys, I don't think we should support them. It's like the knucklehead caucus that threw Kevin McCarthy out. They're almost all gone. I think they will be all gone after this cycle. We do not need knuckleheads who do things like this. And Mike's a smart guy. I don't know, Bresnahan. You don't have to vote for him. You can vote for the Democrat.
Yeah, the mayor of Scranton's going to run, I think, and she's pretty popular. But
Well, I mean, if they're going to screw us, what's the difference?
He sent me a thing for money. I threw it away.
Okay, well, you don't give them money. You can always give your money to a Republican in a good district, but you ought to call Bresnahan and ask him to say, I was wrong. I'm not voting for that stupid bill. I must have had a headache and made a mistake.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, friend. Lawton, Atlanta. Hi, Lawton. What do you think?
Great interview. I'm with you. He needs to stay with the troops and vote with the Republicans. My question is, when the Affordable Care Act was originally put together, how many citizens does it cover? Wasn't it just people that couldn't get pre-existing conditions? Is it
No, it covered every single American. It was sold on a boatload of lies. It was built on a throne of lies. If you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. If you like your insurance company, you keep your insurance company. Everybody got screwed. Obama destroyed health care in the United States. Then he signed the JCPOA, and then he went off to Hawaii and Martha's Vineyard. That's it. That's the long and the short of it.
It's everybody. It's not just a small segment of people. It's everybody.
Everybody's insurance premium is going to go up. The people in the state exchanges, 7% of America, they're going to get a bigger hike than you and I are going to get, but everybody's going to pay more because it's broken. It's completely broken.
When are the Republicans, when are we, now that we got the House and the Senate and the presidency, going to put forward a better plan and get it through?
I'm going to ask Tom Cotton that in the next segment, whether or not we can use reconciliation on health care. So stay tuned. Thank you. Jimmy, where are you, Jimmy?
I am in Texas.
What do you think?
Look, the reason I'm calling, I am a former resident from Ryan McKenzie district.
Okay.
Okay, the reason why is like, again, I don't want to discuss about the reason why Lawler put a discharge and the extension of Obamacare or not. It's mainly I understand why Ryan McKenzie and perhaps Bresnahan voted for. Let's keep in mind that those districts first, McKenzie district has been a Democrat district for at least 10 years. So
look, I get it. They're marginal districts. Kamala Harris won his district. But what's the use of having him win if he screws you on a big vote?
I understand, but they are thinking of the next election. And that vote obviously they know that is going to be stopped in the Senate. So
Yeah, but
they want to campaign on that.
They all held us up. The liberal Republicans in Pennsylvania and New York, they got their 30 pieces of silver when they got the SALT cap lifted. They did not bring up this at all. So they won using their leverage. Then they come back around again and ask for a second bite at the apple, the bipartisan apple. And Mike Johnson said, I can't give you that. We're not going to have a vote on this ridiculous bill. And
I understand. But the point is, they're not going to pass the Senate. Now, with the SALT, it's already law. The problem is completely different. And I understand, and I back up Ryan McKenzie's vote, because he needs to think next year. His district is a marginal.
Yeah, but what I'm arguing to you, and I've been doing this forever, the political fallout from what he did is the worst thing that could happen to him. Because instead of defending an overhaul of Obamacare on the merits, he's going to try and beg Republicans to vote for him despite the fact he'll screw them. And I am unwilling to do that for Mr. Lawler, Fitzpatrick, McKenzie, and Bresnahan. I just don't know why we should. David Joyce is the most reasonable guy in the Congress, and he did not vote for this. So I'm just not buying it, but thank you, Jimmy. Joined by United States Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator, Merry Christmas. I'm sure you're not busy at all.
Well, good afternoon, Hugh, to you, and Merry Christmas to you and your family and all your listeners. There may be one or two more gifts out there that are just waiting to be found by me between now and Wednesday night. Let's hope I succeed.
Amazon could probably get you the Guardians hat and a couple of jerseys in a hurry, and maybe some Browns gear. I think they're on sale. I don't know.
After yesterday, they might be. They came close to beating a pretty good Bills team, but they still found Browns ways to lose.
Yes, they did. Very Browns ways to lose. Senator, I want to ask you, I had a big argument with Mike Lawler on Friday about his discharge petition. You were in the House, and that was a showboat stunt, and there's no way we're going to vote for the 3-year straight extension of Obamacare subsidies, bad law. But his argument sort of was, well, we got to do something, and that's not a very good argument, but is there something that we can do next year on reconciliation with 51 votes, like maybe make the Obamacare state exchanges all one exchange so there's a bigger risk pool on which the insurance companies can bid?
Hugh, I would take a step back even further. A lot of the debate in Congress has been focused on these Obamacare COVID bonuses that Joe Biden handed out in 2021 and which are now expiring. You just asked about Obamacare writ large. I would take a step back even further and say we need to address health insurance and health care for every American, not just the small sliver who are on Obamacare. In Arkansas, for instance, it's about 5% of our population, about 165,000 on Obamacare. I will say that's a more than almost threefold increase from where we were before Joe Biden took office, just to give you a sense of the money that Democrats pumped into Obamacare, which is failing so badly. Only about 10%, or only about 10,000 of those, so only about 0.4% of all Arkansans, are over 400% of the poverty level and therefore losing all subsidies. Everyone, of course, below 400% of poverty, which in Arkansas, I would remind you, is still above the median household income, Hugh. It's still getting the traditional Obamacare subsidy. The reason they're seeing rates of increase of, say, 18, 20, 22% versus private sector increases of 10 to 12% versus the Medicare increase of 9%, of course, that Obamacare is a failing health insurance program. It was flawed from the beginning. It's been driving up the cost of health care for Americans, not just on the exchanges, but off the exchanges, too, because of all the rigid mandates. So we need to take a step back and think about how to make health care and health insurance more affordable for Americans more broadly, not just these COVID bonuses, which were always meant to be temporary and have been riddled with fraud and would cost $350 billion to extend the way the Democrats want to.
Now, Leader Thune told me last week, theoretically, you can do 2 more reconciliations with 50 votes plus the vice president and a majority in the House. Can you get together on some health care reform that makes sense?
Yeah, John Thune is right about that. There's a couple more bites of the apple. So it's not a procedure question. It's the legislative and political question, Hugh, of whether or not we can, align 218 House Republicans and 50 Senate Republicans around the same policies. I think there's a chance we can do that, Hugh. Last summer we were mostly focused on trying to reform and protect Medicaid for the people who need it most. And we accomplished that to some degree. May not have gone as far as some Republicans want, maybe went a little bit farther than some did, but we did save a lot of money to invest back into the Medicaid system for the people who truly need it. Adults with developmental disabilities, or pregnant women, children, so on and so forth, as opposed to grown men who are able-bodied. I think if we had a second health care bill under the special budgetary rules, we'd be looking at some of the things that you and I have been discussing, how to make health care broadly more affordable for everyone, whether it's changing some of the strictures of the Obamacare mandates or making it easy for people to come together through associations or organizations to get health insurance the same way that, say, Walmart can get health insurance and drive a good bargain because they have so many employees. There's a few different ideas batting around out there. Again, it wouldn't be the focus from last summer, which was mostly about Medicaid. It wouldn't be the focus from this past month, which is mostly about those COVID bonuses from Obamacare that were always meant to expire at the end of this month. It would be about making health care more affordable for all Americans.
Well, I think that would be great. And if there was a second one, tweaking immigration so that it got rational again and we got rid of sort of chain migration and focused on high skills immigrants who want to come in, at the same time maybe doing something for the dreamers that make Democrats come over and join it. But people have got to want to sit down and get something done, and it's got to, January through March basically. Then we're in the election cycle. You're the conference chair. Are you optimistic about anything passing next year?
Oh yeah, sure, Hugh. There's a lot of work left to do to implement the ideas on which we campaign to implement President Trump's agenda. I can't tell you exactly what it might look like or what direction it would take. That's, again, going to take agreement among 50 Senate Republicans, 218 House Republicans. But we have a lot of work left to do, trying to make health care, health insurance more affordable, trying to get people back to work, trying to bring inflation generally under control, making sure that we're funding our military, funding the president's immigration initiatives, which, as you said, have gone a long way to help reducing crime and drugs in the country. So there's a lot of work left to do. And you're right that people are going to start facing elections. I mean, I'm in the middle of my own. But it's not true, although often stated in Washington, that nothing gets done in election year. I mean, if you recall, the landmark welfare reform of the Gingrich era got passed, I think, in late July of 1996. So it is often said, but not always true, that nothing happens in an election year. So we've got a lot of runway left ahead of us in this Congress.
Well, that does bring me to my third question, which is the Minnesota fraud is so enormous, and now there's an estimate of fraud in California that dwarfs that. Is there any kind of all-purpose, I don't want to say the word inspector generals because that's just a ticket to nowhere. Is there something that can be done about people cheating the government out of benefits and running up our deficit and screwing really needy Americans out of money that they need?
Yeah, I mean, Hugh, a lot of the work we did last summer in the Working Families Tax Cut was designed to reduce that kind of fraud, whether it was in the food stamp program or in Medicaid or in other welfare programs. I think there's more to be done, obviously. And I think some people in places like Minnesota and California and Massachusetts are going to be facing criminal liability for what they did, as they should. But we've already worked hard and saved hundreds of billions of dollars to the taxpayer in fraud. There are other programs that need stricter controls. I frankly, Hugh, would be fine tightening what we put in place last summer. We only required 20 hours of work a week for able-bodied grown men, Hugh. And work can count as looking for work or volunteering or seeking an education. I don't think many Arkansans believe that 20 hours is onerous, and we'd probably increase that a little bit more.
I'm with you on that. Merry Christmas to you, Senator. Talk to you in the new year. I'm off next week, but I appreciate all the times you've shown up this year, and look forward to talking to you in 2026. Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Thank you, Senator. Let me remind everyone, we've got Angel Tree underway right now. Just a couple of days left to Christmas, but our volunteers with Prison Fellowship will go out there, buy a present for a child that they've asked for, get the note from mom or dad in jail. They might have some lined up. It's a question of whether or not those presents get delivered. They get a Bible, they get a visit from an Angel Tree volunteer, and they can make it work for those kids. They can have Christmas. $30 ahead, and the banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Please be as generous as possible. You know, I never figured out who Good King Wenceslas is. I should look it up. Jim in Sarasota, Florida. Welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Jim, how are you?
Hi, Hugh. Thank you for taking this topic up. You know, it's really a shame how expensive Obamacare is. I've always been on like traditional company-sponsored plans,
right?
And recently have had to look for like an alternate to that. And to get a similar plan for my family that I have traditionally got through like companies is like $7,000 a month. It's insane. And, you know, my issue is like I'm kind of right also above the line even for the subsidies. So this is a very thorny issue for Congress to solve.
It is a very thorny issue for Congress to solve, and pretend votes don't solve it. That's why I'm upset with Lawler. Pretending like there's a prayer. They ought to get together and go to work on it the first day in January. But I am in favor of saying to Mike Lawler and Brian Fitzpatrick and Ryan McKenzie and Rob Bresnahan, you didn't want to be a part of the team? See you later. Go run as a Democrat. You're going to vote like a Democrat, especially after they got tax breaks for their districts in the SALT deal. Like they got their hand out. They took care of their constituents. It makes me crazy. Good luck with that. Are you going to go find a different employer? Are you going to, because you need employer health share, insurance then?
Luckily, kind of at the last moment, I have been able to get a job that's going to offer me health care. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily a job I want to take, but I've got to do that for my family.
Yeah.
By the way, I've tried to get in touch with my congressman, Greg Steube, down here, and he doesn't seem to really acknowledge this issue at all.
Have you tried the local office or the D.C. office?
I've tried both, actually.
Well, keep trying because congressmen ought to call you back. They ought to call you back, and if they don't call you back, they're not doing their job. It is that simple. Thank you, Jim. I got to play some cuts. Here you have Mike Johnson at Turning Point USA America Fest, cut number 3.
What Lincoln was talking about is if we're going to have a self-governing people, we have to have responsibility that goes along with that. The founders understood that you had to have a basic moral consensus to keep a constitutional republic. George Washington was the father of our country. He famously said in his farewell address, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. John Adams came next. He said, our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. The other implication that comes from that is that because we are made by a creator, remember the framers, the founders were students of Scripture, they understood every single person is made in the image of God. And there's big time implications that come from that. You know what it means? Yeah. So the meaning of that is
go
so
then
to
cut number 5. This is Vice President Vance at America Fest.
When I say that I'm going to fight alongside of you, I mean all of you, each and every one. President Trump did not build the greatest coalition in politics by running his supporters through endless, self-defeating purity tests. He says, make America great again because every American is invited.
Good. That's good to say. Cut number 6.
Unlike the left, we stand against treating anybody, and I love what Nikki said about this. We don't treat anybody different because of their race or their sex. So we have relegated DEI to the dustbin of history, which is exactly where it belongs.
And one more cut number 7.
My friends, there is so much more to be done. And the people saying we need to be doing more, we need to be doing it faster, trust me, I hear you. Greatness awaits every single one of you in the America First movement we are building together, but we need your help to get there. Do you want more prosecutions? Great. So do we. Donald Trump and I have a list of better judges and prosecutors to enact swifter justice. So join us in the fight against the stupid Senate rules to stand in their way.
Now, I did not understand this because there is no stupid Senate rule except the blue slip. And if he's against the blue slip, I'm all for him because the blue slip does not make a lick of sense in my view. This filibuster does. The blue slip does not. Boy, am I glad Christmas is coming, America, because I don't think I could listen to Robert Goulet sing this again. Vic Mattis requested this be his Christmas music, and I think this is the third or fourth week we've done this, and I'm done with Robert Goulet, Vic.
I was about to, tell you, Hugh, I was going to take this week off, but I thought, you know what? 3 times the charm. It's finally going to win Hugh over with 3 times Robert Goulet. That's what I thought. Like one more time.
I'm glad you didn't take this week off because I wanted to ask you about this story. You are the arts and culture editor at the Washington Free Beacon. And in addition to being the co-host of the Getting Hammered podcast, have you done your distilled spirits special yet? Because it wasn't on my list today.
Oh, yeah. No, we did a cocktail special last Thursday, and it came out, I believe, on Friday. And it was at Mary Catherine's home. She did all the work. We had about 4 or 5 different drinks. And she is a busy woman. I have to tell you, this is my first time to visit.
Not that afternoon, she wasn't.
No, it's true. And the kids were there, and her husband is there. Everyone's busy working. And yet she found time to set up a wide variety of cocktails to try. It was a lot of fun, and I highly recommend you and your listeners check it out because it really was the good, the bad, and the ugly for Christmas.
Well, I will. I don't listen on the weekend, but I went through my podcast list this morning, and it wasn't there, so I think I must have missed it when it came out, but I will listen to it, and we'll talk about it afterwards. But I still think the Distilled Spirits Association is your natural sponsor. But, Vic, I wanted to talk to you not in your capacity as co-host of Getting Hammered, but in your capacity as arts and culture editor. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Cinema owners see a new hurdle to recovery, the Warner deal. And it talks about, that's not the reason. Avatar, Fire and Ash, a visual spectacle, and a third installment in this blockbuster franchise is the sort of movie made for big screen, half filled. I wouldn't see that in 1,000 years. I thought the first one was a joke. It's not the kind of, the Odyssey is coming out from Christopher Nolan. That's what we want, isn't it?
That is, although the idea of, I believe it's is Matt Damon, I think, playing Odysseus or Ulysses. I'm not sure, but it's people have some concerns. I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan. I loved most of his movies, except for Tenet. So I'm looking for this one because I don't think this one will involve any sort of time travel.
I hated Tenet.
Yes, I know, but his Batman trilogy was excellent. There are great moral and ethical dilemmas in those movies that are timeless, and of course, the Iliad and the Odyssey are also obviously timeless. So I am looking forward to that. With regard to Avatar, I have to cite, I believe it's Nellie Bowles from the Free Press, who said that the experience of watching that is akin to sitting next to somebody playing video games and falling asleep. That's basically what it is. I agree with you, Hugh. The first movie, it was clear to me at least that my inclination was to side with the humans and planet Earth versus the aliens. And the humans, of course, are meant to be bad because they're rampaging and raping nature and all these different things. And that was a bit absurd.
So my bigger point is that they don't make enough movies for normal people. I go see every movie for a normal person out there. I used to go, Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I would go at least once a week. We were probably 70 movie a year people because we had a couple of art houses where we lived and we would see some of the art stuff too. But I think I can count on one hand the movies I've seen this year. I don't think it's a me problem or a theater problem. I think it's a Hollywood problem.
Yeah, 100%. I was trying to think when you were saying that the last time I went to see a movie in the theater, and it was probably Ridley Scott's Napoleon, and that was even slightly disappointing in some ways. But I'm just finding less reasons or fewer reasons to go to the theater. As you know, Disney has been experiencing a slew of problems trying to cater to the woke and the left. I mean, their last movie, Elio, was a disaster. And again, they had to alter it because they were thinking that it would be great to show that kind of a woke movie about a kid who is, sort of basically non-binary for other kids to enjoy. And they had to change it at the last minute because somebody said, amazingly, that might not be a good idea, but by then it was too late. We have no interest in that. I'd like to go back to the olden days when Disney made great movies, and so did Marvel for that matter. But that is a time long gone. So I do hope for things to be better, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, this goes to the bigger question, and you're the arts and culture editor. I think boomers and millennials and Xers might go to movies. I don't think anyone younger than that grew up with a date night, including a movie and a burger, right? There's an entire deal that's gone now from the culture. There's no putting that back.
No, that's right. I think a lot of young people would just prefer to see things that are streaming, with a few exceptions. I mean, I knew a lot of young people wanted to see Wicked 2, including my daughter, and she came back and said, you know what, it wasn't that great. So there's that. But I remember as a kid, going to the movies was a very big event. I remember, I think I was 9 or 10 years old, and we went to see Return of the Jedi in the movie theater, and my other best friend and his family were also in line. They said, do us a favor, save us seats. So we're saving like 10 seats, and it was like the Alamo, Hugh, fending off all these people trying to get the seats. It was quite the experience, but I don't think that same experience holds up anymore today.
By the way, I never would agree to save someone a seat, because I didn't want to put up with the glares. And during the Jurassic Park release era, there's a theater being destroyed in California called Big Newport's being torn down. They'll put up condos or a building or something. It was a giant theater, 3 giant theaters, as big as the Uptown in D.C., as big as any theater you've ever been in. And the lines would be out the door for Jurassic Park or Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's gone. Our children will never experience that.
No, it was a very exciting time. I mean, I lived in, Washington, D.C. in the 90s when the Uptown Theater on Connecticut Avenue was a big to-do, and you'd see all these great movies there, whether it be Titanic or Independence Day. Big events were held at that theater, and the line would be wrapped around the corner. That sadly is gone. I remember, again, as a kid, waiting in line for Empire Strikes Back with my family, and my father, who was a doctor at the time, he ran into a patient. He was a young kid, a boy. He came out and he said, oh, and my dad said, how was the movie? He said, it's great. You're going to love it. And that sort of sticks with you in your head.
I saw the killing fields in Gandhi at the Uptown, so it wasn't exactly a happy place for me, but it was a grand old theater. And is it still there, Vic?
No, it is gone. It's gone. Yeah, sadly.
That's unfortunate. That was a grand old theater. Vic Mattis, go get Getting Hammered, the podcast that is renewed and back in time for 2026. Get your New Year's Eve special. Find out what cocktails you want to drink on New Year's Eve. On the holiday special Getting Hammered podcast, Vic Mattis, follow him at Victorino Mattis. I'm going to be on Hannity tonight. Not sure what we're talking about. I hope it's the story on Cuba in the Wall Street Journal, because on Friday I was on the special report set, and Fridays are always fun, and because you send in winners and losers of the week, and if there's enough time, you get to them. We ran out of time. We had real news happening, strikes in Syria, all sorts of stuff going on, so we didn't get to them. And my winners were 3 soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardman is going to get $1,776 tax-free dollars. They're not taxable income in their BAH, basic allowance for housing. And that's great. There wouldn't be a United States if we didn't have a military. So I'm all in favor of that. That was my winner. My loser of the week was Cuba. And we're talking after the show, and stage manager always likes to know what we had picked. And I said Cuba, and they looked at me like funny. I said, well, look, they get all of their oil, if not all, then nearly all, from Venezuela. And the only thing that Cuba exports are sugar and secret police. And they've sent a lot of secret police and their weapons of intimidation and their weapons of surveillance and their weapons of torture and their systems of imprisonment. It is a gulag. Cuba is a gulag. And it's a gulag that the Wall Street Journal wrote up today this way. The U.S. oil blockade in Venezuela pushes Cuba towards collapse. That is incorrect, actually. That's a lefty editor.
Communism is pushing Cuba towards collapse. We're just not saving them from it. The communist-ruled island was already suffering from food shortages, blackouts, and an exodus of people. Now it faces the loss of cheap oil from Nicolas Maduro. It's from Venezuela, by the way, not from Maduro. He's a dictator, too. First paragraph, Cubans are going hungry, suffering from spreading disease and sleeping outdoors with no electricity to power fans through the sweltering nights. A quarter of the population has fled during the island's most prolonged economic crisis. Did you know that? Did you know that Cuba has had a quarter of their population leave? And the story continues, it's about to get worse. The U.S. is ratcheting up pressure. One tanker the U.S. seized was en route with almost 2 million barrels of Venezuelan oil. And it goes on. It would be the collapse of the Cuban economy, no question about it, said Jorge Piñon, a Cuban exile who tracks the island's energy ties to Venezuela at the University of Texas at Austin. I feel for the innocent people of Cuba. The regime has oppressed them since 1959. Its gulag is a horrible one. Armando Valladares, Against All Odds, came out, I think, in 1984. So it's been 40 years. It's gotten worse. And Raul Castro's a walking zombie, 94 years old. Fidel's been dead forever. They got a new dictator. But it's still a hellhole. When communism collapses, it's going to thrive. It cannot come soon enough. Stay tuned. Go over to Angel Tree maybe during the break. Hit that banner at the top. We got time to serve a few more kids. An old friend is back. We used to call him Congressman. Now we call him Mr. Ambassador. Our ambassador to the United Nations, Michael Waltz. Mr. Ambassador, welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's been a while.
Great to be with you again, Hugh. Thanks so much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
And to you. Can you begin by telling us, this is a broad, easy, slow curve, what's the most surprising thing about Turtle Bay compared to D.C.?
Oh, wow. Well, I think it's what are more of the similarities. If you think there's a swamp in D.C., this is an international swamp at Turtle Bay. But I'll tell you what, and I'll just share with you where the president is let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a hell of a lot of reforms that need to be done, a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. But two things kind of along the lines of America First principles. And this is what the president said when he got here, which is number one, you need one place in the world where everybody can talk, where world leaders come once a year, one place in the world. That's the UN General Assembly here in September. You get over 150 prime ministers and presidents and monarchs that come in. And whether it is our adversaries or allies, the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans, Cubans, Venezuelans, Europeans, Africans, everybody could come here and hash things out, putting diplomacy first. And then number two, Hugh, burden sharing is a key part of America First. And I could walk you around the world where there are things that need to be done in line with our interest. We don't want to have to do it all ourselves. And if we have partners here through the UN system that step in and do it, that's a good thing.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, I don't expect you to comment on the Secretary General. He's been a huge disappointment in my eyes, but I don't expect you to say that. I am curious, though, has President Trump talked to you about Rafael Grossi and his candidacy to replace the Secretary General, which is coming up, I think, next year?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing, regardless of how you feel about the current Secretary General, is he's termed. And we'll have a new Secretary General elected in this next year. And we need someone, from my perspective, that is truly focused on reform. We have driven reforms here ourselves. And I'm proud to tell you that in just the first few months that we've been here, 2,600 bureaucrats are on the chopping block, UN bureaucrats out of the headquarters. That will save hundreds of millions of dollars. That's one. Number two, the current Secretary General has agreed to cut 25% of peacekeepers around the world, and there was a lot of fat to be cut there. Some of these peacekeeping missions have been around 20, 30, 40, some even 70 years. And if they're not working themselves out of a job, we need to help them do so. And they've also, we're about to ratify a 15% budget cut, 18% overall personnel cut, and we're just getting started. So we're dozing, Hugh. We're dozing the heck out of the UN. But there's some good things that they do for us as well, and those are that we need to keep the good parts and throw out the bad parts. That's what we're working hard on. And a new Secretary General that's aligned, with that. I'm not going to comment on Grossi's candidacy personally or specifically, but a new Secretary General that's aligned with that is absolutely critical. We'll demand it, and I think we'll get it.
Okay, let's talk about the real nightmare at the UN, UNRWA. And I don't know how we give them a dime if they don't close down that shop. It's corrupt. It's part of Hamas. And is there any debate about that in the administration, or is the president clear-eyed about that?
No, there's no debate in the administration. Secretary Rubio rightly described UNRWA. This is the UN agency responsible for humanitarian relief and, importantly, education in Gaza that has corrupted and radicalized so many Palestinian youth. We're not giving them a dime. I voted against any funding for them in Congress. The president made that, gave that the first force of law in an executive order. We're working to codify that now in legislation. And we've demanded everyone from the leader of UNRWA that they have to go to dismantle the entire organization. Now, what do you replace it with is something that we're working through. But the current organization is radicalizing Palestinian youth, has been completely infiltrated by Hamas and other terrorist organizations, and has got to go.
Now, I don't know to the extent you were surprised by it, but I was startled that the Trump peace plan got through the Security Council. I really did not think it stood a chance. What do you owe that to?
Hugh, I'm a little disappointed at your lack of confidence there. No, I'm kidding. Look, not only did we get it through, we got it through 13-0 with countries that are on the UN Security Council like Pakistan and Algeria supporting it. The Chinese and Russians not opposing but abstaining. So the president's incredibly proud of it, and he should be. This was his 20-point peace plan that everybody signed up to in Sharm el-Sheikh, now has the force of international law with the unanimous support of the Security Council, and I'm very proud of my team for shepherding that through. It was keeping the Arabs on board, getting the Palestinian Authority to publicly support it, keeping the Israelis on side and comfortable, and not having the Chinese or Russians oppose it with some real bureaucratic jujitsu. What does it do? Essentially, it will establish the Board of Peace led by President Trump. It will establish a temporary technical authority of Palestinians to kind of run government services. It'll establish an international stabilization force. Again, I don't want U.S. troops in there. The Israeli troops going back in means full war and not going to normalization, and that's a problem. So we're going to have an international force, countries like Indonesia, Azerbaijan, and others that are signed up to do that. We got the hostages out, and it lays out with a lot of reforms a pathway to Palestinian sovereignty. All of that in the president's peace plan has now been stamped in international law.
And I want to go further on that. It also ratifies status quo ante as of today, as of the day that it's passed, as to, I think, everything that people thought was a bad deal in the Obama and Biden years out of the UN that's swept away by the Security Council approval. It's not unlike the the UN resolution authorizing our peacekeeping efforts in Korea. It becomes incredibly significant over decades. Or am I overreading on that, Ambassador Waltz?
No, I think this is, and I told our team this when we took the vote. I think history is going to look back on this resolution as one of the kind of seminal, historic, hallmark resolutions that was not just a good deal overall. I mean, look, nobody was perfectly happy with it, but that was probably the best thing Israel will ever get out of this place, and will drive the region towards stability in a way that it hasn't seen, basically since the end of World War II. Look, is it a perfect plan? Can people poke holes in the plan? Absolutely. Does it have a better than zero chance of succeeding? For sure it does. And just a few months ago, when we had terrorists, or we had hostages in tunnels, we had terrorists calling the shots, and we had bombs dropping on a daily basis and protests in the street here in New York, we had a 0% chance of moving towards two things: Middle East peace and the expansion of the Abraham Accords. And that's what we're determined to get done for the president and for the world.
Last question, Ambassador Waltz. I believe it's Article 51 allows preemptive action when a state is threatened. I don't know what the Israelis are talking to you about, but in their press, they're talking about Iran is going back. I think it violates UN resolutions concerning their ballistic missiles, but I'm not sure. I don't doubt that you've had every opportunity to talk to the Iranian ambassador, but don't want to. What's the situation vis-a-vis Iran and its renewed push for ballistic missiles that can threaten Europe and all of our Sunni Gulf allies, as well as Israel?
Well, look, the president's been clear, Secretary of State Rubio, Special Envoy Witkoff, that we're always willing to deal. That Iran has to hand over its highly enriched uranium that can be used for nothing but making a bomb. They can have no enrichment going forward, but we're willing to establish all kinds of mechanisms to help them with a civilian nuclear program. They have to stop funding terrorism all over the Middle East, and they can't threaten the United States, Israel, and Europe. You know President Trump, he is willing to talk. But we've had that deal on the table. The Iranians, unfortunately, didn't take it. President Trump took decisive action in taking down its program. And if they're determined to charge down this path, he's got all options on the table. Excuse me. But importantly, Hugh, the maximum pressure campaign is fully in place. Snapback sanctions have gone back in. That was driven by the team here at the UN. And the Iranian economy is absolutely in shambles. They would be wise to come to the table and take a deal.
Congratulations on as good a year at the UN as the United States has had in very, very many decades. Ambassador Michael Waltz, a happy new year to you. I look forward to talking to you in 26. Thank you for joining me. Joined by United States Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator, Merry Christmas. I'm sure you're not busy at all.
Well, good afternoon, Hugh, to you, and Merry Christmas to you and your family and all your listeners. There may be one or two more gifts out there that are just waiting to be found by me between now and Wednesday night. Let's hope I succeed.
Amazon could probably get you the Guardians hat and a couple of jerseys in a hurry, and maybe some Browns gear. I think they're on sale. I don't know.
After yesterday, they might be. They came close to beating a pretty good Bills team, but they still found Browns ways to lose.
Yes, they did. Very Browns ways to lose. Senator, I want to ask you, I had a big argument with Mike Lawler on Friday about his discharge petition. You were in the House, and that was a showboat stunt, and there's no way we're going to vote for the 3-year straight extension of Obamacare subsidies, bad law. But his argument sort of was, well, we got to do something, and that's not a very good argument, but is there something that we can do next year on reconciliation with 51 votes, like maybe make the Obamacare state exchanges all one exchange, so there's a bigger risk pool on which the insurance companies can bid?
Hugh, I would take a step back even further. A lot of the debate in Congress has been focused on these Obamacare COVID bonuses that Joe Biden handed out in 2021 and which are now expiring. You just asked about Obamacare writ large. I would take a step back even further and say we need to address health insurance and health care for every American, not just the small sliver who are on Obamacare. In Arkansas, for instance, it's about 5% of our population, about 165,000 on Obamacare. I will say that's a more than almost threefold increase from where we were before Joe Biden took office, just to give you a sense of the money that Democrats pumped into Obamacare, which is failing so badly. Only about 10%, or only about 10,000 of those, so only about 0.4% of all Arkansans are over 400% of the poverty level and therefore losing all subsidies. Everyone, of course, below 400% of poverty, which in Arkansas, I would remind you, is still above the median household income, Hugh. It's still getting the traditional Obamacare subsidy. The reason they're seeing rates of increase of, say, 18, 20, 22% versus private sector increases of 10 to 12% versus the Medicare increase of 9%, of course, that Obamacare is a failing health insurance program. It was flawed from the beginning. It's been driving up the cost of health care for Americans, not just on the exchanges, but off the exchanges too, because of all the rigid mandates. So we need to take a step back and think about how to make health care and health insurance more affordable for Americans more broadly, not just these COVID bonuses, which were always meant to be temporary and have been riddled with fraud and would cost $350 billion to extend the way the Democrats want to.
Now, Leader Thune told me last week, theoretically, you can do 2 more reconciliations with 50 votes plus the vice president and a majority in the House. Can you get together on some health care reform that makes sense?
Yeah, John Thune is right about that. There's a couple more bites at the apple. So it's not a procedure question; it's the legislative and political question, Hugh, of whether or not we can, align 218 House Republicans and 50 Senate Republicans around the same policies. I think there's a chance we can do that, Hugh. Last summer we were mostly focused on trying to reform and protect Medicaid for the people who need it most. And we accomplished that to some degree. May not have gone as far as some Republicans want, maybe went a little bit farther than some did. But we did save a lot of money to invest back into the Medicaid system for the people who truly need it. Adults with developmental disabilities, or pregnant women, children, so on and so forth, as opposed to grown men who are able-bodied. I think if we had a second health care bill under the special budgetary rules, we'd be looking at some of the things that you and I have been discussing, how to make health care broadly more affordable for everyone, whether it's changing some of the strictures of the Obamacare mandates or making it easy for people to come together through associations or organizations to get health insurance the same way that, say, Walmart can get health insurance and drive a good bargain because they have so many employees. There's a few different ideas batting around out there. Again, it wouldn't be the focus from last summer, which was mostly about Medicaid. It wouldn't be the focus from this past month, which is mostly about those COVID bonuses from Obamacare that were always meant to expire at the end of this month. It would be about making health care more affordable for all Americans.
Well, I think that would be great. And if there was a second one, tweaking immigration so that it got rational again and we got rid of sort of chain migration and focused on high skills immigrants who want to come in, at the same time maybe doing something for the dreamers that make Democrats come over and join it. But people have got to want to sit down and get something done, and it's got to, January through March basically. Then we're in the election cycle. You're the conference chair. Are you optimistic about anything passing next year?
Oh yeah, sure, Hugh. There's a lot of work left to do to implement the ideas on which we campaign to implement President Trump's agenda. I can't tell you exactly what it might look like or what direction it would take. That's, again, going to take agreement among 50 Senate Republicans, 218 House Republicans. But we have a lot of work left to do, trying to make health care, health insurance more affordable, trying to get people back to work, trying to bring inflation generally under control, making sure that we're funding our military, funding the president's immigration initiatives, which, as you said, have gone a long way to help reducing crime and drugs in the country. So there's a lot of work left to do. And you're right that people are going to start facing elections. I mean, I'm in the middle of my own. But it's not true, although often stated in Washington, that nothing gets done in election year. I mean, if you recall, the landmark welfare reform of the Gingrich era got passed, I think, in late July of 1996. So it is often said, but not always true, that nothing happens in an election year. So we've got a lot of runway left ahead of us in this Congress.
Well, that does bring me to my third question, which is the Minnesota fraud is so enormous, and now there's an estimate of fraud in California that dwarfs that. Is there any kind of all-purpose, I don't want to say the word inspector generals because that's just a ticket to nowhere. Is there something that can be done about people cheating the government out of benefits and running up our deficit and screwing really needy Americans out of money that they need?
Yeah, I mean, Hugh, a lot of the work we did last summer in the Working Families Tax Cut was designed to reduce that kind of fraud, whether it was in the food stamp program or in Medicaid or in other welfare programs. I think there's more to be done, obviously. And I think some people in places like Minnesota and California and Massachusetts are going to be facing criminal liability for what they did, as they should. But we've already worked hard and saved hundreds of billions of dollars to the taxpayer in fraud. There are other programs that need stricter controls. I frankly, Hugh, would be fine tightening what we put in place last summer. We only required 20 hours of work a week for able-bodied grown men, Hugh. And work can count as looking for work or volunteering or seeking an education. I don't think many Arkansans believe that 20 hours is onerous, and we'd probably increase that a little bit more.
I'm with you on that. Merry Christmas to you, Senator. Talk to you in the new year. I'm off next week, but I appreciate all the times you've shown up this year, and look forward to talking to you in 2026. Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Thank you, Senator. Let me remind everyone, we've got Angel Tree underway right now. Just a couple of days left to Christmas, but our volunteers with Prison Fellowship will go out there, buy a present for a child that they've asked for, get the note from mom or dad in jail. They might have some lined up. It's a question of whether or not those presents get delivered. They get a Bible. They get a visit from an Angel Tree volunteer, and they can make it work for those kids. They can have Christmas. $30 ahead, and the banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Please be as generous as possible. Look, not a lot of news the week of Christmas, but there is in college athletics and especially in football. So Doug Lesmerises is back, co-host of the Bill and Doug Show, which you can get on every podcast platform if you want to subscribe to it. Bill and Doug Show OSU or Bill and Doug OSU. Doug, what is it? I always screw it up.
They'll find it. Bill and Doug OSU.substack.com, Hugh. We appreciate it.
That's it. Bill and Doug OSU.substack.com. But I've been listening to the podcast. This is probably the last time we talk before the end of the year, and we'll talk again in 26. So I'd like to spend the first segment looking back at the 4 games we watched this weekend, and then looking ahead to the 4 games ahead on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. First of all, what'd you make of poor old James Madison, Oregon? That looked pretty awful.
Yeah, it's hard. There's quite a divide in college sports right now, Hugh, that we have these lower conference teams who have a chance to make the playoff. They are guaranteed 1 spot. They got 2 spots this year. James Madison and Tulane both made it. They are not 2 of the 12 best teams in college football, but they're in there anyway. And so what does that mean? Is it good for the sport? Is it bad for the sport? I've had people suggest to me that those JMU players, they're going to be embarrassed that they were part of something like that. I think those JMU players are going to tell their grandkids they played in the college football playoff. And I think that's great. And I think that if we get into a world where we expect every single game in the first round of a playoff in any sport to be the highest level game, the most competitive game you ever saw, I don't think that's the only thing that playoffs exist for. I don't think that's true in the NFL, in the NBA, and Major League Baseball. And I don't think it should be or has to be true in college football. So there's a reality here that you have to let at least one team in from the smaller conferences, or that playoff might get sued. It might be an antitrust violation that you're monopolizing things. So there's like a courtroom aspect to this, Hugh, but also JMU and Tulane. Tennessee got blown out by Ohio State last year. So JMU got blown out by Oregon. Tulane got blown out by Ole Miss. The other 2 games were really competitive. I think it's cool that we give those smaller programs a chance.
Okay, so my only question is, and you would know this, and I don't, is there a risk of injury from the group of 5 schools playing the bigs that doesn't exist when the bigs play the bigs? Because football's a violent sport, but you don't want the freshman team playing the all-state champions at high school level, right?
Yeah, it actually does happen, Hugh, anyway in the regular season. But what normally happens is those lower level teams are paid $1.5 million, $1.8, $2 million to go to a big school, provide that home game attendance, the home team gets the ticket revenue, all that, and to get blown out. And that's part of the structure of the sport. And so it's already happening, Hugh, that those lower conference teams are playing the big conference teams, but usually it's for a payday. Now it's for an opportunity. So I don't think that there was any more risk to those JMU players than you would see, in other things during the year. Tulane played Ole Miss in the playoff. Tulane played Ole Miss during the regular season too. Tulane played Duke and Northwestern during the regular season. It's part of college football. So I understand your question, but we're already dealing with it, and I think they're okay.
All right, and by the way, I understand your point of view because I have JMU fans in the family, and they were as excited could be, and they believed, right? They believed, and I was actually pulling for them for a quarter and a half. They were hanging, not close, but they were hanging, but then it went ugly. Let's go to the two games that were not ugly. Alabama and Oklahoma. I know you love Alabama so much. That's a joke, America. If there's one team Doug Lesmerises does not like, it's Alabama. It was a good game, though, and it was kept us on the edge of our seats, but they are, what's your word, mid?
Mid. It's a lot of adjective discussion, Hugh. Was it a competitive game? It was. Was it an exciting game? It was. Was it a close game? It was. Was it a good game? I don't know if the football was that good, right? Oklahoma was up 17-0, and then they blew what should have been a long pass. Their punter dropped the ball. Their quarterback threw it straight into the hands of an Alabama defensive player for an interception return for a touchdown, and all of a sudden Alabama's back in the game. So you had this situation where, for instance, last year in the first round, and I think your audience knows this, Hugh, this is this new era. We have 12 teams in the playoff. We have 4 first-round games that are on home campus sites, and last year all the home teams won. So this was Alabama winning in Oklahoma, which is a credit to Alabama to do that. But I didn't find that game to be a particularly high level of college football. It was fine, but it's also part of me. It's like, people are like, JMU and Tulane, they can't win the national championship. I don't think Alabama can win the national championship either. They beat Oklahoma. Great, congratulations, but I think they're going to have a tough time with Indiana. But yeah, it was exciting. I don't know if it was good.
I'm coming back with Doug on the other side. We're going to look ahead, and you can put this in your bank of things to listen to get started for Bowl weekend, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl. All that's coming up in 2 weeks. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back with Doug Lesmerises, who you can follow on X at Doug Lesmerises and BillandDougOSU.substack.com. Normally I do politics, but this is the week that politics doesn't really exist. So got to throw some good football in there, and college football is better than the NFL. Doug Lesmerises is here, co-host of the Bill and Doug Show. You can find that at BillandDougOSU.substack.com or wherever podcasts are. Bill and Doug Show, you'll find it. Doug, let's talk about Miami and A&M. I watched the whole game because it's basically the warm-up for the Ohio State game. What did you think of the game, and what do you think about Miami against Ohio State, which opened up, I think, at 10.5-point favorites?
Yeah, so we have actually already spoken with some Ohio State people about that. Ryan Day and some offensive players. NFL players all over the Miami defense is what Ryan Day said. And you did see that in that game.
Yep.
Miami's defensive front especially has some guys who will really get after the quarterback. That is something that Ohio State is going to have to deal with. There are a lot of defense first teams left among these 8, Hugh, that kind of lead with their defense. And I think Ohio State and Miami are 2 of them. So not a very high-scoring game for that Miami-Texas A&M, but I think this is the better matchup. I'm intrigued by Miami-Ohio State, and they talked about this on the broadcast, Hugh. That win for Miami, that was the biggest game, this playoff game, was the biggest game that Miami had played since the national championship game at the end of the 2002 season when they lost to Ohio State. You think about that. That's 2 decades. That's a generation, Hugh, of Miami fans who have not seen Miami play games at the highest level of the sport, when for the previous generation, they did it all the time. So now we're going to have a lot of talk about that Ohio State-Miami national championship game from 2002, the changing of the guard in football. But I think it's fun to have good Miami back in college football.
Oh, and we're going to be talking about the right side of the Ohio State offensive line. At least you and Landis are going to be talking about because they have got some defensive ends.
Oh, they will get after you. Reuben Bain is going to be a star in the NFL. Mesidor is going to be a star in the NFL. And Ohio State, actually, as you mentioned, we've been talking about their right guard spot a lot. Right guard's injured, so they're going to have a new starter. They're going to have a first-time starter at right guard against Miami. So it's been a problem position for Ohio State. But it's a heck of a thing to put a guy out there who's never started before and try to block the Miami Hurricanes. So it's probably going to be a second-year player named Gabe Van Sickle who is expected to start for the Buckeyes. So that will be something that Miami will certainly try to attack.
But I'm glad it's at the Cotton Bowl, not the Orange Bowl. And I heard some people say that's an Ohio State home game. Why do they say that? Because we travel better?
So it is tough. Like when you think about this, the travel in the playoffs. So Miami fans just, if you wanted to go to the first round game, you went to Texas because it was at Texas A&M. And now it's like, hey, they won. So what are you going to do? Oh, we got to go to Texas again. So they got to go back to Texas, where Ohio State fans could sit at home and save their money in the first round, right? And it is, I know, people on our Substack were talking about the ticket prices for the Cotton Bowl started falling the moment Miami won. Because if that was going to be Texas A&M, Ohio State, holy moly, right? But if nobody's close, Ohio State makes it a home game. Ohio State fans are wild. It is a giant alumni base. And so, yes, my expectation is there will be quite a bit, many more Ohio State fans than Miami fans in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl.
Okay, game 2, we're going to have Ole Miss versus Georgia, an SEC matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, so I thought Ole Miss might be in trouble. Everybody knows their head coach left. Their head coach took a new job. They were playing without their head coach, and they won convincingly against Tulane. So Ole Miss and Georgia played a close game earlier in the year in the regular season. Georgia won. Ole Miss, really good offense. More questions about their defense. I don't know. I think Georgia usually has a great defense. I think their defense is good, not great this year. We've talked about Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback who was a transfer from Division II Ferris State. Like, he's a great story. I think that's a kind of a toss-up, and it's a traditional Sugar Bowl, right? The Sugar Bowl is kind of the postseason home of the SEC. So we're getting 2 SEC teams in New Orleans, Georgia, Ole Miss. This is what SEC fans want. I think it could go either way.
All right, and Alabama, Indiana, and for the benefit of the audience who doesn't know, Doug is not a real fan of SEC propaganda over the years because it's been ubiquitous. He's a big fan of Northern football. This is that. This is Alabama, blue blood, versus Indiana, not a blue blood by any definition. What do you think?
Fascinating. Curt Cignetti, the Indiana head coach, used to be an assistant at Alabama for Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Alabama, used to be an assistant at Indiana. A lot of crossover there, but it is a defining game in the new era of college football, Hugh. Because Indiana was the worst program in college football. They had the worst winning percentage of any major team. Alabama's as blue as a blue-blooded you can get. And now here they are. Indiana's the 1 seed and Alabama's the 9. It would blow your mind. Bear Bryant, if you try to explain this to Bear Bryant, that they're playing Indiana in a playoff game and Indiana's the higher seed, he'd think you were lying. So this is what is great about the new era of college football. Indiana lost one of their really good defensive players, tragic injury. He was celebrating with fans at the end of the Big Ten title game, jumped up to high-five somebody, landed and hurt his knee and is out. Stephen Daly. So, Bama's got great players. Indiana has great players and is a tremendously well-coached, great team. I like Indiana, but this is what modern college football is all about.
It's the test. And then Oregon, Texas Tech. Now, I thought Oregon looked like an NFL team, and I hope more comes out in the draft because the Browns might want to get him, even though Shador looked good yesterday. What do you think of that? I just don't know enough about Texas Tech to have an opinion. I just know that Oregon looked really tough.
Yeah, so this is interesting. This is like oil money versus shoe money. These are two programs who are creations of the modern college football. Texas Tech just did it this year with Cody Campbell, their big booster. They paid for a team. They brought in a bunch of transfers, and it worked. Right? But Oregon has built up over the last decade because they're supported by Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, the creator of Nike, and that's right there in Eugene, Oregon. So these are two programs. They haven't won national championships. They haven't been on this level for very long. And again, if you have resources, you now can pay players. You have a chance to jump up and challenge the Alabamas and the Ohio States of the world. So this is the best matchup of this next round. This is a coin toss game. Texas Tech's defense is awesome, but as you said, Oregon, great run game, and Dante Moore, that quarterback you like, is a perhaps future Cleveland Brown. He is an excellent quarterback. There's been some iffy quarterback play. He's great, and it's like he's a tremendous young quarterback. They're top to bottom, and remember, Oregon was the #1 seed in the playoff last year, Hugh, and they lost to Ohio State in the first round. They're mad about that. They've been mad all year. So Oregon's on a bit of a revenge tour here. Should be a great game.
That is your preview, America, and you can follow Doug over at BillAndDougOSU.Substack.com or go find the podcast and stay up to date with everything developing in college football. Thank you, Doug. Happy New Year to you. Talk to you in 26. Don't forget, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. Reminding you what I took in the first hour of ReliefFactor.com. I start every day with Relief Factor in the first hour of my program because I take it every day and have for more than 12 years, 13 years come January 1. Very effective. Helps your body's anti-inflammatory system. Got out and did 3 miles today because it's cold. And that's my limit when it's cold. But not because of minor aches and pains. Nor do I take Tylenol or Advil or aspirin or any of the over-the-counters. All I need is Relief Factor. You ought to try the starter pack, $19.95, less than $1 a day. Give them a call, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. That's 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Or head over and find the starter pack, $19.95, less than $1 a day, at their website, ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. Life is just so much easier when you don't have pain to worry about in the course of the day. That's why you try ReliefFactor.com. Let me also tell you about Americans for Free Markets, one of our great sponsors, forfreemarkets.org, forfreemarkets.org. Under previous administrations, Obama, Biden, vague, outdated policies were abused by politically motivated regulators, and they led to the closure of America's bank accounts. Lots of them. People who were judged conservative by those regulators or just not preferred by those regulators. Thankfully, Donald Trump ended it for the Trump administration with an executive order in August. But Americans for a Free Market is doing more than thanking President Trump. I thank him, too. We don't want debanking in this country. They're moving to ask Congress and urge Congress to take that executive order and turn it into a statute. Lawmakers should also establish a national standard prohibiting any financial institution from denying services based upon a religion or the politics of whoever is running that. Obviously, criminal enterprises are not welcome, but free markets should be free, shouldn't be up to anyone's politics where you bank. So please come and join us at all Americans over at forfreemarkets.org, F-O-R, freemarkets.org, forfreemarkets.org. Finally, let me tell you about Consumer Cellular. That's 1-800-411-4454. Tell you about Consumer Cellular every day. I want to make sure you know about it heading into the holidays because you probably spent too much money. It's time to save some money. You can do that with Consumer Cellular. How do you do that? Call 1-800-411-4454 and have your phone bill in your hand. Look at how much data you're using and then compare with you might need a 5 gig plan. You might need a 10 gig plan. If you're over 50, you really want the best deal. Ask for unlimited data. If you're one of the people that want unlimited data and you're over 50, they will sell you 2 lines of unlimited data. Keep your numbers, keep your data, keep your contacts, but just switch over to Consumer Cellular. 2 lines if you're over 50 for $60 a month. Almost everybody can get in touch with their U.S.-based customer service get done changing within 20 minutes. 1-800-411-4454. My code is Hugh, H-U-G-H. That gets you your second month free. Don't wait another day. Go out and get it done today at 1-800-411-4454, consumercellular.com/Hugh.